Hello, everybody. Welcome back to All Our Parts. I am so excited to introduce my guest for this week. She just pitched a thriller idea, and I am literally so excited to talk about it. She is a leadership and mindset coach. Josie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh gosh, thank you so much, Jasmine, for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So, just to dive right in, family is not always thicker than water, and that
Yes.
is a lesson that so many of us experience but don't give space to talk about. So just to kind of start, what inspired you to, want to speak on this?
What inspired me to talk about this is definitely that one, we don't talk enough about it. It's kind of like almost like a taboo topic. Like there's so much judgment immediately, like how dare you speak about this, or how dare you setting up boundaries with your parents? How dare you not having a relationship with them? Like how dare you cutting them out of your life? Like all of those things. But what I see as more important is your own happiness in life. And if a person does not contribute to that, or even drains your happiness, or even makes your life just living hell, then
Hmm.
they do not deserve a place in your life. It is a toxic person. And sometimes those toxic people can come from family, even though we don't like it. And I've experienced it myself for sure in the past. So that's why I wanted to come on and share about this because it is a really, really important topic in my heart.
100%. And there's like a level of guilt sometimes too that comes with making the choice to either part ways from family, restructure what that family relationship looks like. I know for myself, I have definitely sat with, like, I know these people are not like good for me to have in my life. And I'm like, but they're my family and I want to be able to figure it out. And so many of us sit in that space of, I want to figure it out because they are family. And to your point, if a person is not contributing to living your best, most authentic life, then
Mm,
they shouldn't have a place in your life. And biologically, we do place that pedestal on family. And then when we separate, when we ask ourselves, if we were related by blood, would I really have you in my
yeah.
life? And if the answer is no, then it's like, why do we make those permissions
Mm.
anyway?
And that's really the problem I see here. Like, why do we why do we use like the connection through blood as that one ultimate excuse that no, we have to keep this person in our lives? Like as you said, like if they weren't related, would we still keep them around? Like most likely not. It's a lot easier to then like cut off, but because you have apparently like this unbreakable bond, you're like, oh no, I have to make this work. I have to get along with them. I have to invite them to my wedding, to my birthdays. I have to send them cards and like all of those things and like keep up maybe a facade or like a relationship that actually you don't like. But the question is like, at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
If the
Yeah.
cost is way greater than what you actually get out of it, especially if you only get pain and being hurt out of it, then it's not worth it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not worth it.
Yeah. As much as you feel comfortable sharing, what does your family structure look like right now, or who are people you keep in touch with or not keep in touch with?
Yeah, so I changed my family structure in terms of like how I stay in touch with them, who do I allow into my life, very drastically when I turned 25. Up until then, I was trying all the things. I was like, no, it's family. I gotta go to the birthdays. I gotta show up. I gotta play the game. Gotta put a happy smile on my face when I see them. But oh my gosh, every single time, like on my mother's side, but also my father's side, especially, there were so many moments, so many comments that just felt like being stabbed into the back, into my heart. There was so much judgment, kind of like behind the back talking and gossiping. And I was just like, sorry, but this is family. Like, if I look at any movie, at any like children's picture book, whatever. Family
Mhm.
looks always different. And of course, no family is perfect, but this hurts.
Mm.
So when I was 25, like on my birthday, I was like, okay, cool. We shall make some decisions now. We shall make some changes because I'm sick of this. I was so sick of it. And specifically, so the relationship to my dad was a very, very tricky one. He was a very narcissistic parent. So everything would evolve around him. He would always want to be like the center of attention. Oh, that's my shared experience. Obviously, he would say something else, but I wouldn't know what he would say. He always said, oh, yeah, like this is a game we are playing, and I'm going to win this game. And he was always kind of like in a fight against my mum, kind of like a like revenge kind of game where he was always like, oh, I'm going to win against your mother and you have to play with me and you have to do all of these things. And then in the same sentence, he would call her all the names,
Mm.
all the names. And then right after, he would say things like, and you're exactly the same like your mother, you're exactly the same. Within like one conversation, he tried to manipulate me to be on his side. He insulted me. He made me
Mhm.
feel like shit, like all of those things. He insulted also other family members. He always was saying, like, because of my surname, like, oh yeah, you're just a Dumont, you're like the others, you're like the rest of them. That was a very, very, very toxic and draining
Mm.
relationship. And my 25th birthday, I sent him an email. And I did try to talk about this with him beforehand. I was like, listen, like this doesn't work. I can't do this anymore because it's too painful. It just hurts so much. And I'm not happy around you. When I think about you, I'm not happy. Any conversation that we're having is just a draining, like literally the life juice out of me. I sent him an email and was just like, look, this is how it goes from now on. We will have no contact no more. I will do everything without you. I will do life without you. There will be clear boundaries, and
Mhm.
you can respect them or you cannot, but these are my boundaries and I will honor them because I want to be happy in my life.
Yeah.
And he wrote back something around like understood and accepted with kind regards, and then he signed with his name. And I was like, I've expected worse, but that's okay. And since then, I didn't have any contact with him. So I really cut that relationship, but also with some other family members on my mom's side, like my aunts, some cousins. I did not go to any more like family come togethers because I just couldn't stand this toxicity anymore. It was just too much because once I saw what was going on, it was unbearable. I can't even like describe it differently. It was just unbearable. And I just felt like I was valuing my life and my own happiness way more than putting up this facade to make them happy. So there was a big inward focus. And they did say things like, oh, Josie, you're so selfish. What about us? Like, don't you love us anymore? We love you so much. We're always there for you. And I was like, the thing is, though, you're not. Like, you're saying this, but you're not. So no, thank you. I'm going to the UK. I'm moving away, and I shall do my own thing. And yeah, so since then I also cut the relationship to them. One relationship that I did not intend to change at first was the relationship to my grandma. That was a very, very dear relationship to me. She was kind of like a parent figure almost to me. She was always very much involved in my life, and she was always kind of like a go-to person for me to trust and be around.
Mhm.
But then certain things happened, especially after I cut off the relationship to my dad because she is his mom. She didn't understand. And then there were some things happening where she just stepped literally again into my bag. Now I was just like,
Mhm.
whoa, those were the most painful moments almost because I felt very much betrayed,
Mhm.
betrayed by the one like I loved the most and the one I literally wanted to keep in my life the most, like the one I valued the most in terms of my
Mhm.
family as well. But then all of those things happened. So the relationship kind of fizzled out. And it's on the one hand very sad, but on the other hand, I need to be happy first. I
Yeah.
can't bend myself and be inauthentic to make those other people happy. So that is one relationship where I'm still working actually through grief at times, especially around my birthday, which is actually upcoming next week. So that's when these feelings, these emotions come up really, really strongly. And I do want to point that out because that might be also why this topic obviously is really hard to talk about, because there is so much to work through. There is so much sadness, so much grief,
Yes.
but there's also so much happiness gained from it.
Yeah.
And the feeling of staying authentic, the feeling of staying true to yourself will always overweigh, like balance out
Mhm.
those feelings of like the feeling icky because you have this mask on your face.
Yeah. I resonate with so much of what you just said and empathize with so much of what you just shared. And it's interesting because we have very similar familial people that we have had to make very serious like decisions about. I went no contact with my dad at 16 and then at the same time would insult me, uh, call me names. I'm like, I can't do this like I actually can't do this anymore. And my parents had shared custody. They also couldn't stand one another. And so I was the triangulation piece that you just
Oh gosh,
described,
yes.
being in the middle of that as a child. I am like, please hire a mediator, not me. But even at 16, I was like, this I don't know what something different looks like yet because I also had really challenging relationships with like my cousins, like some aunts and things. It's like I don't know what different looks like at 16, but this can't be the best. Like this cannot be
Yeah.
it. And so having that contact cut off, it's been I haven't seen him in 10 years and I actually just shared that with my aunt recently. She was like, "You really haven't seen him in 10 years?" I was like, "Correct." Like I told you
Yeah.
all I went no contact with him. It wasn't a frivolous concept. I was very serious about that.
Yeah.
But my grandmother was also somebody I actually had to recently go no contact with because she made like a disparaging remark as relates to my like relationship.
Hmm.
And in those moments, like the way you just described it, it's like, what the fuck? Like it's like, really? Like now I have to make a very hard choice. And so remember sitting across from her and letting her talk and say what she needed to say. And then I was like, you know what? I'm leaving. And we've been no contact for the last like 2 years.
Mm. I feel with you.
Not gonna work. So yeah, it's like this, it's a gut punch, honestly. And like you
It
said,
is.
working through the feelings. And I think sometimes, I don't know if you can relate to this.
Mm. Yes. Yes. I can relate to this very much. And I think actually, do you know where I feel like that might be coming from? From feeling like you have to be the good daughter, the good granddaughter, the good girl, like the one who manages it all. And then we experience this kind of failure where we have this relationship that didn't work out. And it's so easy to then put blame onto ourselves and obviously feel embarrassed for like one, it not working out, but at the same time also embarrassed for how could I let this even happen to me? So there are two sides of the coin, I feel like. And they're both hard,
Hmm.
both hard to work through.
And even I remember growing up and seeing other people with their dads, and I'm like, well, I know I'll never have that. And
Yeah.
feeling that jealousy and that embarrassment that I like don't even want to be seen with my father.
Mm,
It's like, oh, man, I don't have the picture perfect family dynamic. And if I know for me, I was around a lot of people who did. Like they had mom and dad in the
same.
house, they had siblings. I'm an only child. And so always looking and being like, wow, I'm in a real lonely spot because I don't have the family. to connect to, but I also don't have friends that can really sit with where I'm at
Mm.
right now.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. Like many people can't understand, especially if obviously they have maybe like really healthy family dynamics, and you're then there from the outside looking in, and it's just like, but why can't I have that? Like, why is it so hard for me? And your friend is like, I want to be there to support you, but I really don't get what you're going through because I don't experience that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how often I've like tried to tell people like my upbringing, my story, and try to make sense of like how my parents are around me and how they made me feel and what's going on. Probably oversharing in so many conversations with people I just met as well, because I was just like seeking for this, do you understand me?
Mhm.
But most people didn't. And after a while, I was just like, maybe that's okay. Maybe they don't need to understand. And I did find along the way those people who would be there no matter what. It didn't matter that they had maybe like better family dynamics or not. They were
Mhm.
just like here for, Josie, I love you. And that's all that matters. And
Yeah.
that was then really the support that helped me to form bonds that to me personally were way thicker than bonds to family. They
Mhm.
would outweigh any blood connection that I had. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to still have these people in my life. And I'm just like, wow, thank you. And this seeing like this value and this difference in those relationships between your friends that who are
Mhm.
truly there for you compared to the ones who were supposed to be there for you, who were supposed to love you unconditionally, is worlds apart, which is literally why I'm saying like, yep, blood ain't thicker than water.
But you just spoke, oh my goodness, this is the perfect segue because you just spoke to A, the lonely aspect of it, where we are seeking that connection
Mm.
because we have no idea. We're relearning how to connect with people. We are relearning what it means to share, to be open with other people. And so it does feel like oversharing because you're like, hey, like I don't have a family. Like I don't have anyone in my family that I can connect with. And I'm going to put this out there and then hope you receive it. And there is that space where you're like, just keep it to
Like,
myself.
yeah.
And then time passes, healing happens, life happens, and you meet those people and you recognize like maybe 16-year-old me didn't know the difference, but me now, I'm like, I absolutely do know the difference. I have the difference now, and this feels so much better than the situations that I was in
Mm.
years ago. What is it? What do you think is the first step in rebuilding community?
I feel like the first step is in, to me personally, it was overcoming the fear of being hurt by the ones I love the most. And that is something that my coach actually told me back in 2020, 2021, because that was at one of my lowest points in life. So everything else was crushing around me. The long-term relationship I was in like turned really toxic. So even though we got married right after, 3 weeks after we got divorced, because I just couldn't stand it anymore. Like I had to once again choose myself, but at the same time, have all these people with their opinions come back at me and hurt me. So the fear of being hurt by the ones I loved the most was so huge. And that's something I really had to work on overcoming to be able to trust again, because
Mm.
it's a trust thing. It's a trust thing in terms of like trusting other people and being like,
Yeah.
I still see the good in you. I still trust that you can be, that you are an incredible person and you bring value into my life, but to also trust for those who don't that you can cut them off. And I feel like overcoming this kind of fear starts with rebuilding love to yourself. I
Mm.
mean, any community building, relationship building always starts with the relationship to yourself. And that can be done through various ways, obviously, like just doing the inner work, doing the
Yeah.
mindset work, going into the fears, going into your limiting beliefs, working through all of that. But also, and it's something I've been loving to do personally, is go on solo trips. Take yourself out on a date. take yourself out into a coffee shop, go to the cinema, like romanticize your life and this one relationship with this one person that stays with you your whole life. That is you.
Yeah.
And once you can build that trust to yourself again, you can expand that. And you can also expand that love and that compassion, that kindness once again to others. And that's where you then can rekindle even relationships or build new relationships. And for me, that helped to strengthen the relationship to some friends I already had that I still have in my life. And I'm so grateful for that. But it also helped me to rekindle, restart my relationship to my mom because I cut that one off as well. So both parents were out of my life for a long time. But by doing this inner work, and she actually did the work herself without me telling her, obviously, but she did some inner work herself. And that was then forming this new basis. So I do feel like if there has been a broken relationship, both parts need to be willing to work on it. But it starts with the inner work. And then to maybe venture out a little bit and be like, what do you think about this? And we literally reconnected back again on topics like energy, the universe, manifesting, passion topics. But that helped us to just find this common ground again. And I know we will never, ever have this incredibly loving mother-daughter relationship, but that's fine because I know what we have right now is something new, something special that we never had. And it's based on true feelings of love. But it took us doing the inner work first and really focusing inwards first.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, to that, I want to say, forget everyone else for a second. It starts with rebuilding that relationship to yourself because our internal voice is now influenced by our family. And so our internal voice is a combination of what we think of ourselves, but also what they think of us and those negative messages. And so if that is still being funneled and played out in our mind, it's impacting the choices we make. It's certainly reinforcing the limiting beliefs that we might have. So we have to rebuild that relationship to ourselves, knowing that we are our own safe person, that we are our own trusted guide, that we are our own compass, and we can make choices to be in community with people that truly love us and see us. But it truly, the external cannot reflect the internal until the internal has been addressed.
100%, 100%. We really got to learn to work through detaching all of that like conditioning that comes from the outside, everything that's not us, and to really start coming back home to ourselves, who we truly are at our core, like who we authentically are. And yes, that is scary work. Like we got to look at like, okay, who is Josie actually? Who is Jasmine actually? Like, what do we like? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Like, how do we deal with difficult situations? How do we deal with good situations? Can we actually deal with heavy emotions? Like, what are all of those things that make us us? And I feel like that's where also my coach actually helped me a lot, just through having this external perspective, but to guide me to find out things about me, like my values, my goals, my dreams, what I want to stand for. Like, what do I want to have written literally on like the tombstone of my grave at the end of my life? Like, what do I want my life to stand for, my legacy that I want to leave? And also like the generational like traumas and BS that I want to break through. I don't want to bring the same stuff into the relationship with my kids. So I got to work it out. I got to figure it out now to heal that so I can be a better parent. But that really starts with this kind of like deep level of self-awareness and getting it to know yourself and really peeling off those layers of the onion that have been around you, like those social tool expectations, parental conditioning, all of that stuff. Peel it all away so you find actually like who you truly are again at your core. And I don't think this is an ending journey. Like there's no real end to it. I think we do that actually our whole life because it's hard work and it's consistent work. Like even me now as a leadership and mindset coach, I'm still doing the work. Like it doesn't stop. Like they still come up. I still have those heavy emotions, like when I
Yeah.
talk about my family and stuff. But it gets easier, and you learn the tools along the way, and you learn more and more to really respect and accept and love yourself for who
Mhm.
you are, and just build this deep love to yourself that just feels so empowering and so freeing as well, because you know you have your own back and you're like, I got me.
Yeah.
I literally got me. And that is so much more worth than, yeah, a
Yeah.
fake relationship to someone where you're like, no, no,
Yeah.
thanks.
And it does get easier. And even as you rebuild and recreate new relationships in your life, those relationships make it so much easier to look at family dynamics and say, I am not tolerating that. At least, I mean, for me, I got into a conflict with my cousin about 2 years ago, and she like straight up disrespected me. I was
Mm,
like, I'm still speechless when I think about it.
I
And
can
then
tell.
I was like, you know what? There is nobody in my life that I would ever let speak to me that way right now and move forward. There would be no moving forward after that. And so it became a much easier choice for her to apologize and then for me to say, you are forgiven and there is no space in my life for you because I won't be
Mm,
spoken to that way. And it versus me maybe a few years ago would have felt we can repair it, we can figure it out. Let's talk about it. Let's, you know, I'm here. I want to fix it. It's like actually no, I love myself way too much to allow you to speak to me that way because I know you're going to do it again. Like
yeah.
this isn't a one-off thing. This is who you are. I'm seeing you for who you are and I'm going to make a more informed choice now based on the information that I have. And so it does get easier to choose yourself. It gets way easier to cultivate a community, a space of people that are more aligned with where you are.
Mm,
And then it gets much easier to process and recognize that the family that you choose to part ways with are not people that are good for you.
yeah. And you really touch on such an important point here around setting boundaries. And I'm such a strong believer in boundaries actually lead to the healthier relationships, because you're protecting your own peace, and
Yeah.
you're also upholding obviously like an authentic relationship with that other person. But it takes obviously communication and being like, this is the boundary I'm putting up. This is
Hmm.
why you can accept it and understand it and like not step over it. But if you do step over it, these are the consequences. Yeah, then you teach them how they are supposed to treat you. But if
Hmm.
you want to be treated with respect and love, then you got to uphold those boundaries. And the same with everything. That will feel hard in the beginning. It will feel very hard, but also that will get easier, because if they do accept them and actually the relationship blossoms because of that, then you're like, this was the best choice ever. Thank
Hmm.
you. And also
Yeah.
the other person will be like, wow, this actually improved our relationship, because now we can bond on way deeper terms that allow another to be truly authentic
Hmm.
and to not just be like almost like using of another.
Boundaries, I always say, is the thing that has me and the other person in mind. But
100%.
boundaries also allow for us to avoid feeling resentful of the other person. And when you just spoke to someone trampling and then us saying, yeah, it's fine, we're just growing resentful of that person. And then rather than addressing the boundary that was crossed, now you're trying to sort through your feelings of, wow, I let them treat me this way. And they chose to take liberty with treating me this way. And so
Yeah.
now I'm dealing with something a bit more complicated. And resent is hard to work through. As someone who has sat in their resentment and who has allowed people to be very flex with my boundaries and being like, you'll get it right next time. No worries, no sweat.
Yeah.
I have sat in that space where I'm like, "Ah, why would they treat me that way?" And then it's like, I let them treat me that way. Like, I didn't speak up for myself and stand up for myself. We want to avoid that conflict. We want to avoid them looking at us differently. And it's like, if they're looking at me differently for setting a boundary, that's more of a reflection of them. And they get to have their response. And then I get to have my response. But I don't need to attach myself, my worth, my
Mm.
integrity to their response.
Yes, that's where we then would get into people pleasing again, and like almost giving into that fear of like being hurt or hurting people who are of meaning to us. And I feel like an important practice there is to practice forgiveness.
Hmm.
Forgiveness to yourself for letting them step over your boundary,
Yeah.
and being like, okay, even though I let this happen, I still love and accept myself. And I do forgive myself, because if we then go down into this resentment hole towards ourselves, then we go down a rabbit hole of just limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, and we don't want to be there. It's a very bad place to be. And that can cause really heavy emotions and even more stuff to deal with. So forgiveness can be such a good gift to yourself. But then obviously also, when practicing detachment from those other people or what they have done to us that wasn't fair, if they have hurt us, forgiving them doesn't mean they are right. It doesn't mean they had all the right to do what they did, or that it was
Yeah.
okay what they did. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means you're setting yourself free. Like, you're letting that grudge go, you're letting that resentment go,
Mm.
because those are very heavy negative emotions, and we don't want them to grow into something that we might not be able to deal with in other ways, because that could lead to depression. Maybe it could lead to really
Mm.
anxiety. So practicing forgiveness can really help to prevent that, and to just almost like just clear off all the weeds all the weeds in the garden, and be like, cool, I have like a clear empty space now again to grow the relationships that actually are
Yeah.
of value. And the ones where we have a boundary, well, there's a little fence. Sometimes we peek over, we look and see like, can we like connect, rekindle, like
Hmm.
what's happening over there? If not, then not. That's totally fine. We just let them be. We still love them, we're still grateful for them, but they just live their lives and you live yours on your side of the garden.
So well said. 100%. When we're able to work through those very complicated feelings, when we're able to free ourselves from that disappointment, the shame, the guilt, the hurt that comes with separating from family members, there's peace on the other side. And then we get to say, I wish you the best. Like, I wish you great things. I hope that you do well. And I'm going to hope for that for you on this side of town. Like, I don't need to have you in my circle. You don't need to be in my orbit for me to have neutral, calm thoughts about you. But
Yeah.
that is only after allowing yourself to sit in the anger and the frustration and the hurt that comes with severing that tie.
Mm. Yes, it really is important to acknowledge those emotions, because one, there are no good emotions with bad emotions. Like, we want them both. We want
Right.
to experience them both, even though sometimes it's hard. But that's what makes this life so beautiful, right? Because we have this huge scale of like emotions and things that we can experience. But as you say, like when we finally are able to create that boundary, that peace, and just let them go, it's such a serenity, like inner serenity and calmness inside you. And also just knowing that you're still able to send them all your love, like you're still loving them, and also recognizing like their happiness is not your responsibility.
Yeah.
And also that is just a burden off your shoulders, because your own happiness is your full responsibility, like
Yeah.
100%. Other people's happiness is their own responsibility. And I feel like that is something so important in any relationship, actually, that both parties, like both people in a relationship, need to understand.
Hmm.
And that expectation of like, you need to make me happy. You owe me happiness. Like, no, you don't. I owe my own happiness and you owe your own happiness. So let's work on that. I have no influence on that. Like, we can
Mm-hmm.
spend great time together. We can have a great relationship, or we don't. But it's not my responsibility to carry your happiness on my shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say to somebody who is just starting to become aware that their family dynamics are challenging and they maybe need to reevaluate the relationship?
I would say start with really getting to know yourself first. Like, start with that inner self-awareness piece to just know, okay, what values have been dishonored in this relationship? How have you been hurt? And I know that might be painful to look at first, but it's important to know. We got to hold up the mirror and be like, okay, what is actually going on inside of us? How is this impacting us? Is it holding us back? Is it making us feel small or insignificant, unloved, unworthy? What's going on inside? And to then also reflect on, but what do I want out of my life? What do I need to be happy? And then the other piece is to communicate that. It might not be easy, it might not be understood. Maybe it will be actually understood, and you can put up a boundary. The other person will be like, cool, we try that. And they will
Mhm.
respect that. But it takes training, obviously, and it takes willingness from both sides. But I feel like the communication piece is still really important, to just make it clear to the other person, not just ghost them. By communicating and you clearly stating like what's going on, how you're feeling, you at least aired it. You gave it a chance to be out there and to be received and to be understood. And if it doesn't, then that's where you obviously go into the next stage, where you might be like, cool, this is the consequence I'm now putting into
Yeah.
place, because I have to choose myself first.
Yeah. Yeah. I really hope this episode just allows people who have been in this position and finding themselves at a crossroads that they recognize that they're not alone in this situation and that there are people who have made very tough choices for their own peace. And I want to reemphasize it does get better and it gets easier, and you will 100% find people that deserve to know you.
Mm, yes, you will.
Josie, how can people work with you? How can they find you if they are feeling called to?
So you can find me anywhere and everywhere, especially Threads. Threads right now is just my happy place. I love it. But also Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube with my name, Josi Dumont. So that is Josi and then Dumont. My website is called the same, josidumont.com. And I offer one-on-one coaching services. I also have a membership that truly focuses on you becoming your best self. But if you want to maybe dip your toes into this world, then I also have a book that is called And There She Goes Her Way, in which I go into detail of actions that you can take to really get to know yourself and create that self-awareness, so you can make better informed decisions to create a life that is better for you and makes you ultimately happy.
Thank you so much for joining me today and just having this conversation with me.
Thank you so much for having me.